Hey, y'all, this is Rob back with the Robb Report, courtesy of Filthy Rags Outreach. Before we get started today, I just want to just put this in the air. I just pray for God, you know what I'm saying, to make sure the right things are said and that it's received in the right way. Also, I just pray for my family. My stepmom just went back to the hospital again and stopped breathing, and she's doing fine. And just, if you guys is out there, pray for my family and, pray for everybody out there. We got this war stuff going on with these people over there overseas and different things. The devil's definitely active. What I wanted to say is last week we did an interview on Cheryl, and we're going to update the website. She's got court coming up this week, and we'll try to put some Skype information out there. And we just ask that y'all support her. And sometimes just showing up in the form of a Skype is support. A lot of people wanted to know how we can get her justice. And I think we just get her justice by just showing up for her when she goes to court so she feels the community, and that right there will make the judges do the right things, and I think that's all she's really looking for is the court system to do the right thing for her, So I just ask everybody when we put this information up there, please do your best and just support her. And I want to continue as we do this work with Filthy Rags Outreach. I want to continue to be a voice for the victims and work with the victims of violence, So anytime you guys feel a victim out there or somebody that we can impact their life, please feel free to hit Jessica up, or you can hit me up on the JPay, www.jpay.com. My DOC number is 708710, and we can do some consultation. Or you may just have some bad kids at the house, or your kids is in gangs or involved in things, and you need some consultation. Well, we want to be there. We want to do more for the community. And sometimes people want to reach out to somebody and just get some answers or have somebody to talk to. So we want to be that. Also, I want to say on a not so good note, in the last few weeks, we've had like several officers murdered in the line of duty. And, I just wanted to say my heart goes out to those families because those are real people out there trying to protect the community. But what I think is really sad is that it's continuing to happen. And, a lot of times we have these legislators and they will use these type of things to ignore the sentence disparities. But what I'm really griping on is not the sentencing disparities, is that we have guys like my guy Charles Champion, who is from Filthy Rags Outreach, and he's been locked up for murdering a cop. And we can use his voice. His voice can be magnified out there. These people could work together with us, and we can use his voice out there to speak out to people and say, "Hey, this isn't the way things are done. This is what's gonna happen. This is what living on death row looks like." And I think that a lot of times that we're missing the mark, and while we're continuing to lose these officers out there, I feel like there's an opportunity for us to work hand in hand to create more awareness, So that's just one of my frustrations, and I want to see my guy Charles get out because he really speaks out while he's in here. He speaks out about stuff like that, and you just got to use voices like that, and it just keeps happening. So it's just really frustrating for me. So I just wanted to also say before we get into this interview that my guys LG and 2G. They also represent for Filthy Rags Outreach, but they've been doing work out in the Hilltop community. So if you guys have time, Google them. They're on locatethenation.com. So also what I want to do.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
When my 60 seconds is up, I'm going to come back and I'm going to interview this young lady that's out of Seattle that grew up in Seattle. Her name is Jayme, and I'm going to have her just basically tell you guys things from her perspective because, this is a white woman that actually grew up in the gang lifestyle. So I think this will be very interesting for you guys. So we're going to just call her right now. We're going to get started with the interview. Jessica, real quick, I'm going to have to call you back. So I want you to just go ahead and talk to the people real quick and give them the updates, all right?
You have 30 seconds remaining.
Hello.
Hello, may I speak to Jayme, please?
This is her.
Hey, Jayme, what's up? You on the podcast, Filthy Rags Outreach. So, I wanted you to talk to the people and just tell them who you are and just tell them a little bit about yourself real quick.
So I'm Jayme. I am about 40 years old at this point in life. And I used to, run around with the best of them, hang around gangbanging, selling dope, making all kinds of moves around town, getting my little jugs. Basically I'd have my hand in whatever I could get my hand into in regards to the street life and making money and hustling any way that I could. I personally experienced a tragic incident with domestic violence / gun violence that kind of changed the trajectory of the rest of my life. And so at that point, you know, I made a decision to change my life. And so I went back to school. I got a double master's. You know, I'm very proud and successful in my career at this point in time. And, um, you know, I've really changed my life around, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of persistence to, you know, fix some of the mistakes that you made when you're living the kind of life that I was living back then. So, yeah, I'm in a pretty good place right as of now.
Okay, okay, that's cool, man. You know, one of the things that you talked about was like the domestic violence, and you know, we definitely, when we tag teamed up with you, we wanted you to actually lead our domestic violence unit here with the Filthy Rags Outreach. So we're definitely going to talk about that here in a few minutes. I just wanted to back up real quick because you were talking about the street life and the different stuff like that, and so I wanted to just delve into that just a little bit. Why the street life? What made you gravitate towards that?
You know, that's a really difficult question, Rob, because I didn't have to be in the streets. My parents were middle class parents. I could have had a totally different life. I don't know what necessarily called me to that life. I don't know if it was puppy love. I don't know if it was a fascination with the lifestyle or just me being an impressionable teenager. I don't really know the exact reason. Probably a combination of all three of those things. Um, and so I chose that life. You know, I didn't have to choose that life. I left home at 13 and I lived on the streets, you know, with the homies for a long time until I was about 22, 23 years old. So, um, you know, I think it was a mixture of all those things. And, and from there, I was committed to living that life. You know, there was no turning back for me for whatever reason. And I was in there for the long haul.
Yeah. So let me ask you, like, you were like you said you was getting your jugs. For most people that don't know that, that means you was getting your money. So like you was out there being a dope girl. So like, what happened to make you go down that road? Like, who turned you on to that and start showing you that? Not the person. You don't got to say the name, but you know, like, did somebody grab you and show you that, or was everybody doing it and you wanted to do it? How did that even come about?
So, I mean, mostly from, you know, hanging around my boyfriend at the time, watching him do it and all his homies doing it. And, you know, for me, I will, you know, for me and my two homegirls, it was the three of us. You know, we were the three stooges, and for us, we was more of the girls that ran with the dudes than, you know, the homegirls that hooked up with the dudes. You know, so we was more of like the hard type of females, you know, that was out there trying to get it just like the dudes were. We were out there trying to grind. We were out there trying to scheme and scam. We were out there trying to hit licks and, you know, get our money. And that's just the kind of girls we were. You know, we weren't into the whole dressing up pretty cute thing. We were wearing Dickies and Chuck Taylors and, you know, Ben Davis and all that. So, you know, those were the kind of females that I was running with. And, you know, we kind of just looked up to the dudes that we were messing with at the time, and we just followed their lead, you know, and we got tips and tricks from them, and we learned from watching them dealing with all kinds of base heads and street folk. You know, we learned how to do that ourselves. And so, you know, from then on, the three of us kind of just, you know, did our thing. We did it together. We did it separately. You know, we just did it.
Right, right, okay, and you know, and I wanted to talk about this too because like, and I've talked about this a lot as far as like with the women in the game. A lot of times it seems really good, and I think that like if women hear this, then they can also hear, even though you're saying that, I mean, surely it's going to turn, and there's going to be a reason for other women not to be into this type of stuff because eventually it's like it's a no-win situation. So I wanted to ask you because obviously you've experienced some of the violence and stuff. So you've seen people die, right?
Yes, lots of people.
Okay. And then, all right. And so, like, and one of the things that I've always noticed, like, being in the game is like, the women aren't never like, you don't, it doesn't matter. It's like, am I right in saying that? Like, you don't, it doesn't, it's like, oh, well, okay, you know, it's close to home, but it's not me, and you guys are really desensitized to this type of stuff. I mean, so correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I definitely think that, we get desensitized when we see so much of it, or we hear so much of it even. I mean, that even to the sadly, Rob, I probably hear more about it now than I did then. All of the homies that we used to hang out with, honestly, they're all almost gone, and either they're gone, you know, to God, or they're gone to drugs. And so I hear about it
Right,
more now than I even did back then. Or maybe I realize it more now, I'm more conscious of it now, one of those two things. So yeah,
right,
but yeah,
right.
I definitely think we get desensitized, and it's sad, and you stop and you ponder on it, but you don't really feel the emotions that you might necessarily feel if you weren't exposed to so much of it.
Right, right. So I wanted to talk to you about something else because I just, I don't really know you that well, but I heard that you was like one of the hitters. You got some hands on you, right? So I want to just ask, did you feel like when you're like in the neighborhood and stuff like that, and then being white, that you had to go just a little bit harder to prove yourself, or was it just naturally you just was a fighter?
Definitely had to go harder. Definitely. I mean, I definitely had to prove myself. I definitely had to prove that I wasn't going to be a punk in the streets, and that, a lot of females wanted to fight me just simply because I was white. They just wanted to punk me, and back then it was like a big deal to be the white girl with the crew, like you really had to be somebody, or you were going to get ran over and taken advantage of, and all kinds of stuff, because you're dealing with some really street smart people out there. You really are. And I think I really did have to prove myself. I know that there was a couple of fights that I had just to do that, and so yeah, I'd have to say yes to that.
Okay. Okay. No, I dig it. I dig it. Now, also because I've seen a lot of this and I've experienced a lot of this too, right? And that's really unique here, having you speak about it. But now I want to ask you on the flip side because, when you come up in like the neighborhoods that we come from, normally, it gets to a point where like the next guy doesn't see the white woman no more. You become one of us, and so can we talk about what that looks like, where our lifestyle becomes your lifestyle so much that now other people will see you, and then people from your own denomination, they don't look at you the same no more because you're with us, or just how does that look for you?
um that's a great question, actually. And my response to that question is, when you're younger, you're not really looking at that. You're not looking at society and saying, how is society looking at me as a white person hanging out with these black folks or Hispanics or whatever the case may be? You're not really looking at it like that, because you're too caught up in the mix. But as I've gotten older and more conscious of racial inequities and all of the mistreatment of our colored people out here, I definitely see how I am treated different for, being on the same side, or sticking up and defending my people, or, that kind of stuff. And I feel judged on a daily basis for that.
What do you feel you're being judged? Do you feel like if you decide that you want to roll on some wheels or something, or if you listen to some hip hop, I mean, what do you think that people see that makes them look at you and say you grew up around? Like, do you think they just look at you and they know you come from something different, and they don't look at you like you grew up in my neighborhood? Or is it because you have a ism about you, or is it just something they can feel?
I feel like, honestly, I feel like you know I feel like I'm experiencing a little bit of what y'all probably experience. I do ride on some rims. I do have some beats, and it's like I still be rolling, like that's just in me. You know what I'm saying? So like I'm I'm 40 years old. Yes, I'm still
All
listening to my beats and I'm still playing my E40 from back in the day and I'm still playing Too Short and all that. I'm still doing that, and so like, yeah, I will roll right on up to my job at University of Washington, bumping my E40 on my 24s. So, I know people have to know, okay, homegirl is coming from somewhere. She knows somebody or something, so I feel like
right.
even though I'm respected in my profession and people take me seriously, I know that they, in the back of their mind, they know that I'm coming from something.
Right. Okay. So you ain't neck rolling and rolling your eyes and all that other stuff. Then it's just they can feel it. Then.
I try not to, Rob. I try not to.
All right. All right. Now I'm gonna change subject before I change the subject. You know what I'm saying? I know somebody that knows you. They said you got a mouth on you. So sometimes when you open your mouth, people start judging, saying, "Uh oh,
Yeah, that's true.
is that the case?"
It's
All right.
true. I
All
mean,
right.
you can't,
Okay.
you can't take it all out of you. It's always gonna live
Right.
inside you.
Right, right. All right, all right. So let me change the subject on you. You were talking a little bit ago about like you had a bad experience. Obviously, I don't want to even have you dive into that experience, but I do want to say prior to us getting a hold of you, I was just speaking about like how there was a rash of officers. There's a couple officers got killed recently, and then it just was told to me too that one of the last officers that got killed, that the dude was locked up for domestic violence and rape, and he got out and he ended up killing an officer. And I think that it's important for me to say this because like in prison you have domestic violence is never it's never really dealt with, and so then you can get people that can go out there and they can still have those different rages, but what I want to ask you is like, what do you think is important for people to know about domestic violence and how can it tie into like the filthy rags?
So, I've done a lot. I've went through domestic violence myself. Most of my relationships throughout my life, I experienced some level of domestic violence, and you know, majority of people, I'd say, I think it's like 60% of individuals who were exposed to domestic violence, they experienced domestic violence as a child, and then that exposure, to domestic violence, whether they're victims or witnesses, it's often associated with long-term physical, psychological, and emotional damages, right? And they carry those into adulthood, and obviously that makes them a higher risk for engaging in criminal behaviors later in life and becoming a gang member and just continuing that cycle of violence. Now, with that being said, I think if Filthy Rags can successfully implement a domestic violence program, which I believe we can, I think we can start to address those cycles of violence in prison, and
Yeah.
hold classes and hold teachings and bring awareness to what is domestic violence. A lot of times these men don't even know that what they're doing or how they've been living or the relationships that they've been in or even have been affected by were domestic violence. And domestic violence can look like so many different things. And I think bringing that awareness to them and teaching them how to come out of those cycles and change those cycles, so that their kids and their future relationships upon release, or, even if they're not released, the relationships that they make in prison or with people on the outside can begin to heal and change. And I think we could instill those things in the men and women who our organization will be dealing with. I think we can begin to teach them, what all the many different shapes and forms domestic violence comes in. Because a lot of people just think, oh, domestic violence is just some dude smacking some woman around. And in our reality, that's the easy part of domestic violence, is the physicalities, right? The mental and
Hmm.
emotional abuse that happens is what's really damaging. And I'd like to put this out there too, is it's not only men out here doing domestic violence. I mean, by the time I
Hmm.
was in my last marriage, at the end of my last marriage, I was just as violent and just as domestic violence as he was, because that's what I had been taught all my life. That's what I had learned, and that's how I had learned to communicate in a relationship. So, I mean, just as much as he was going to knock me over my head, I was going to knock him over his head. So you learn these things, and sometimes women are more abusive than men. So I'm not putting this on either gender. I'm just saying that this goes for all walks of life. I mean, it goes for all people, all nationalities. Anybody can experience domestic violence. It's not just a man hitting a woman and that's domestic violence. There's a lot more to it. It's a lot more intricate than that.
Right. No, that's a lot of information right there. One of the things that I was saying that you just said too is like you were talking about like getting that stuff inside the prisons and getting that information. I think that's definitely important because, like I said, I see like this guy that got out and just killed the officer, but I see people here all the time and they don't offer nothing. They'll tell you like when you get towards the end of your time, we'll give you anger management. But
Yeah.
anger management and correct me if I'm wrong. Is anger management and domestic violence the same thing?
No, not necessarily. I mean, they can be, but not necessarily. They can be two different things. You can be an angry person and have anger issues and not be hitting your partner, you know?
Right,
So,
right. Okay,
and
yeah,
anger
yeah. So
management is kind of a blanket thing that society uses to, okay, let's go ahead and fix this violent person. It's not really, a fix. It's something that's been around for years. And I mean, there's some organizations out there, there's some people out there who really do intensive anger management, but for the most part, it's just a blanket, conversation,
right,
learnings and teachings, and that's it. And you move on. You don't really get
right.
what you need to get out of it to change.
Right, right, right. And in my mind too, going along with what you said, I feel like if a guy's violent, he's got 25 years, and maybe he needs 25 years of anger management too. But then they give it to you right at the end and say, "Hey, don't get mad no more," right? But you're on your way
Right.
out the door with no real skills. You feel me? So no,
Not
I agree with you on that. Now, with you with the domestic violence, how has your personal experience impacted your life, short term and long?
you know um it takes the average person suffering in a domestic violence situation 7 times before they leave the situation. 7 times. So you might leave and then you go back, you might leave again, you might go back, and this can span over decades, but it's about 7 times before that person finally decides, okay, you know what, I'm done with this, I am ready to let go. And my own experience impacted me short term. um, I suffered from extreme emotional distress. I was constantly in a fight or flight mentality. I was, always on 10. Um, Wanting to leave, but not really having a way out. Um, Whether it was financial reasons or housing or losing my job, those were some of the short term impacts and barriers uh, to leave it in the first place. For me personally, the long term is where it really got difficult, right? So the short term was like, okay, how am I going to keep my job? Where am I going to take me and my kids? And that is a difficult place to be, but the long term is somewhere you've never been before. It's a whole new realm of healing and learning, and that's where things really get difficult. And for me, the effects of the abuse had taken such a toll on my mental health that it took me years to get back to being like the core of who I actually was, and not the person that somebody had told me I was over the last 7 to 8 years. Sometimes you can't find the same you that you were before you experienced all that abuse. So you gotta, create a new healthy version of yourself. And that's hard too, because sometimes people are like, well, I want the old Jayme. And I'm like, that girl is gone. This is the new me, and you're going to have to get to know the new me and love the new me if you want to be in my life. Um, and like I had mentioned earlier, when I said domestic violence, the physical and the physical part's nothing. The emotional and mental part is the part that causes the long-term effects. Recovering from these type of situations looks different to each individual, but for me, I was lucky to have a strong, supportive individual in my corner who actually helped me build myself back up and helped to put me back together. And I was lucky. Not everybody has an individual in their life that's willing to give that much of themselves to another person and help them heal. I was lucky to have that in my life. Some people, you know, don't recover from these situations and resort to drugs and alcohol, or continue to use drugs and alcohol, or suffer from both physical and mental disabilities for the rest of their life. There's some of these things you can't heal. Some of them is just, every situation is different, and it just depends on the extent of what the person went through and how strong they are, and if they can or can't get through it. I've met some incredibly strong women over the years who've suffered from domestic violence, and some of them are amazing leaders. Some of them are depressed, and some of them just do the best they can. And, I give kudos to each and every one of them that's just continuing to make it every day.
Yeah, that's dope that you actually had, like, I don't know who your support person was or whatever, but like it just leads me to ask you, like, when it comes to like the services that were out there and the resources, in helping you recover, like, could you speak to that? Because I know that me and you talked before, and I know that every organization is out there that says they're to help doesn't always help. It doesn't always meet the needs of maybe what you needed at the time. And I'm not sure of your story, but could you tell me what services helped, and if like if there are services that don't help, could you speak to that too?
Yeah. So, I think it's 50-50 in regards to services and barriers. And I think the standard practice of our society is you call looking for help, and wherever you call, they're like, okay, you can call 211. I mean, that is the standard answer. And I'm going to tell you right now, that is not helpful. Okay. You can call 211 and sit on the phone with somebody who's going to give you all of the local resources in your area that can help you, you know. So you're on the phone writing down all these numbers and all these resources, and you get to going through the list and calling each and every one of them. And I personally found that most of these resources were lacking any type of real tangible assistance or help. Like, they give you numbers to shelters and crisis lines and etc. And I'm not knocking those, because it absolutely works for some people. And so for those people that it works for, kudos to them. But for people like me who I had a good job, I had a good job, and I didn't want to lose my job. I also didn't want to go to a shelter. I didn't want to be bothered by people like homeless people. I didn't want to be around homeless people and drug addicts. That wasn't going to be beneficial to me or my kids in my healing process. To see more devastation, that wasn't going to be something that I wanted to do. And so, that wasn't helpful for me. And so, I didn't find those things to be helpful. What I was seeking personally, I was seeking privacy. I was seeking somewhere safe for me and my children to go to, that had, clothing, a washer and dryer, food, basic needs, toothbrushes, toothpaste, all the shit that I wasn't going to grab when we fled our situation. Because when I finally said, fuck it, I meant it. Like, I was out. Fuck it. We got what we got. Get the car keys, get your backpacks for school, and let's roll. So that's how we left. And what am I going to do about childcare? Because I still got to go to work. I still got to make money. I can't make my situation worse. And so for me, a lot of these places will say, well, we'll help you get counseling, and we'll help you with a motel voucher for 2 days. And that's all good and dandy, but that's not a long-term plan. That's not real tangible help. And what I needed and what I was looking for, like I said, was privacy, a washer dryer, a couple of outfits for my kids so they could go to school, make sure I could wash my scrubs for work the next day, and just kind of a place for me and my kids to decompress. Let my kids be kids. Let them play with a few toys, watch television, and like not have the fear of that person who was our abuser in the house, getting ready to flash at any point in time. And so, I think that most women would probably relate to that in wanting what I wanted. We don't want a bunch of counselors sitting up in our faces and social workers asking us and our kids a bunch of questions. We're trying to digest the situation ourselves. We're trying to, figure out in our head, we're scrambling to figure out, okay, how are we going to survive? What is my plan now that I've made this decision? And so for me, when I think about Filthy Regs outreach and how and the DV program that we can create, I want it to be a place that's much needed. Like I envision having in an emergency space for a single person or family, whatever the situation is, in those first weeks of fleeing a DV situation. I want them to have somewhere to go and give them the feeling of safety and recovery, and to use, to use the space as they choose. I want the space to have clothes and food and basic needs, so they can collect their thoughts and to start making a plan for their new life and all the changes ahead of them. I do want us to have, resources available for them. I want them to have individuals that they can contact, through Filthy Regs outreach that says, okay, let's say my decision was, okay, I want to keep my job, but housing is going to be a huge barrier for me. I want us at Filthy Rags to be able to say, okay, and I want us to be able to take that on with that person, and let's find you some housing. Let's find you some private housing where you and your family can feel comfortable, safe, and start your healing journey. Like if the person's concern is, well, I don't have a job, and then if I do get a job, my children need childcare. Okay, well, let's reach out to so and so and let's get the job in place, and then we'll worry about the childcare next. Like I want real tangible things to happen for people that come to us seeking help. I think, and I'm sorry to be so long-winded, but I really think that Filthy Regs being able to develop and create, a one-of-a-kind, no barriers DV program would be a step in the right direction to getting more domestic violence survivors to come forward and reach out for help.
I like it. I like it. And so when you talk about that, those barriers, were some of the barriers for you just not being able to just have those different things, or is it like, could you have left sooner if your needs were met by some of these facilities, or did they weren't meeting your needs and you'd have to go back to your mate? What I'm saying? I'm just trying to get a clearer picture on that.
Yeah, I mean, there's several different organizations. Like I live in the east side of Seattle, and there's several different organizations around here that'll, you know, they'll say, like you call 211 and they're like, okay, this place will help you with rental assistance, they'll help you with childcare, and they'll help you with this, they'll help with food. Okay, so you call the place up and you're like, okay, I'm calling you. I got your number from 211, and I need rental assistance. Oh, well, we're all out of rental assistance right now. Call back on the 1st. Okay, that does absolutely nothing for me. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely nothing. When you are trying to flee a domestic violence program, you cannot wait 3 more days. You cannot wait till next month. You got to go. And when you're ready to go, you really got to go. And so those are the type of barriers that I would run into. Or, oh, we offer food assistance, and they'll tell you, you can go to the Hope Link Food Bank. It's open from 2 to 4 o'clock. Well, honey, I'm at work until 5:30, 6 o'clock. And maybe I don't have a car to get there.
Right.
So how am I going to get that
Right.
little basket of food? I mean, I appreciate it, but how in the hell am I going to get it? And so it's those type of barriers that really prevent somebody in this type of situation from leaving and getting out of these situations, and the longer that a woman has to, or anybody has to stay in this type of situation, every day is closer to a day that they might not see the next day, so
Right.
that's why this is my outlook on things. This is my envision, is a no barriers program. Is you tell me what you need to help you, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that happens.
I definitely hear a lot of passion, a lot of fire in your voice, and then also like some of the barriers that you were just saying, like they sound super frustrating, like yeah. I mean, I can kind of see why a lot of these programs don't work, by you just explaining like you still having to go to work, and then they're telling you to go to a food bank and all these different things. So like I hear exactly, like I'm really hearing it now, and it's like it's really resonating with me. Oh man. Let me ask you this. What do you think, like some suggestions to make it safer for victims and survivors to come forward? Like what you like, we just talked about like some of the barriers. So like obviously we want to erase some of those barriers. But what do you think, just as somebody from that, would make it safer for them to really just come forward and feel good about it?
I think developing a program that has access. I mean, Filthy Rags developing this no barrier kind of DV program would be, a step in the right direction. But hopefully we can be, my plan would be for us to be so successful with this venture. And I know that I'm passionate about it, but I know that there's a lot of other passionate people at Filthy Rags, and I know that there's a lot of other people that we're going to come in contact with or already are in contact with that have similar experiences and who are just as passionate. And if we can develop this program and we can show our city and surrounding cities, and we can show our legislature, and we can show our governors, and we can show all of these people that pass these bills and these laws how successful our program is, that will begin to open up a plethora of other programs who will hopefully copycat what we started. And so we can begin to improve domestic violence, worldwide, if I dare to think so big.
Right. I definitely I definitely agree with that. Like actually this has really been like a very educational interview for me as well, you know. And like I said, because there's so many men, including myself, that are in here and we don't look at like we're desensitized, like so, you know, slapping women and these different things that we've all done. Like, you know, we've never really taken a look at the misogynies and the different things and the music and how this type of stuff has influenced our behavior. You know, so I just wanted to ask you real quick before we go, because I know the time is going up. Do you think like and I just want to say in the black community, do you think that some of our actions are, do you think that the music and some of the things that we hear in the music gives us that we don't care attitude about women?
Man, I don't even think it's strictly to the black community anymore. I mean, hip hop and rap and all of the, the music that kind of started out with that, with the violence against women stuff, it has spread so wide now that I don't even think you can just pinpoint the black community at this point. Do I think that the music has an influence over, how men treat women in general? Yes, absolutely. There's some songs I listen to. I'll put on something from back in the day and I'll listen to it now and I'll be like, oh hell no, I'm not bumping that. No way. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh, hold on, that's not the cut that I
Right,
remembered it used to be. You know what I'm saying? Let me turn that down. So,
right,
yes, I absolutely do think that it has encouraged it. What I hate to say that because I love our music. I love our music. I love what it's
right,
done
right,
for the culture. I love it. I do. And so I hate to talk bad about it, but at the same time, if we want to see change within our own communities and our own culture, and not just the black culture, but the hip hop culture and the way we live, all of the people that are involved in this stuff now, if we want to change the culture in general, I think, it's time for some of the music industry to start taking a look at that. And I'm not saying, that to take away all of that music and stuff, but, how important is that on a big scale of things?
right.
When you look at your community and how much your community might suffer from influencing all of our young people um, to be violent, how much, what is the benefit versus the risks, and how are we going to weigh that? And how are the people that influence that going to take that seriously?
Right. No, you articulated that very well, and I wasn't just saying that against our community, but one of the things is that realistically, with the Filthy Rags, I mean, we're going to be working with a lot of people from our community, right? And a lot of people, including women like yourself, listen to the hip hop stuff, right? And so I believe that the music does a lot to us. You know, so I just wanted to speak that out there because even when we look at like reforming, like the gang reforms and the domestic violence and different things like that, I think if we start doing like workshops and different things like that, we have to address some of the things that are being poured into us. that comes directly from the music, and then also just from some of the people that were around. Because I'm going to be honest with you, you know, I was just sitting here just the other day, and the dude was just talking about how, you know, how he just punches his woman out, and he's getting ready to get out, and he just says, you know, and it's like I walk away from that type of stuff. But you have people, and they just sit here and they laugh at that type of stuff, and the guy's already made up his mind that when he gets out, if she don't have his money, he's going to punch her lights out. You feel me? And so, like, we
Yeah,
just have a lot of work to do, you know, and the
yeah.
prison's not going to get it done for us, and so we're going to have to bring a lot of this education inside the walls. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. And I think it can happen. I do think that it'll be a lot of work, you know, us getting inside that prison and trying to build some type of partnership with DOC and get them on board with what it is we're trying to do. I mean, that's going to be a feat in and of itself. But I think with enough persistence and just drive, you know, I think anything's possible, and I think we could break that barrier too. So I think you
Right,
know, we can
right.
we can do that. We can definitely do that. It's just going to take a lot of work on our behalf, and we can't give up, and we can't hang our heads low because we're going to get told no about 500 times before we get that one yes. And so we just got to hang in there and remember that.
Right. And then I just want to put this bug in your ear too, because as you're talking, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, yo, okay, so check it out. You know, a lot of guys do come to jail. Like eventually, you know, you slap your woman or you punch her, you come to jail. But then you're going right back out there. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, they look at it like simple assault, so now you might get a year and a day. And then you know that year and a day is 6 months. So now you're back out there. And then it's like, you know what, why'd you put me in jail? Boom, it happens again. You feel me? So like what I think is missing a big component, like when we talk about barriers, one of the barriers is that the guys can't get the help they need in prison. You know what I'm saying?
Right. They don't use the justice system what it's for. It's supposed to be reforming. And they're not reforming these people. And that's why they keep getting out and continuing to do what they do. And so, you know, if you took that year
Right.
and a day that homeboy is getting in prison and he had to participate in an intensive he had to participate in an intensive domestic violence program, then you might have something there.
Right. Right. Well, listen, Jamie, this has been a great interview, and I hope that we can put something up there, just a big section on the website for the domestic violence, and where people can always tap into this interview because it's been very educational. So I just wanted to thank you for your time, and even though my prison phone's going to hang up, I wanted to know if you have any last thoughts, and you can share those thoughts. And if my phone hangs up, that's great. But thank you again, and if you got any last thoughts, please say them, please.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. It's been my pleasure. You know, I think that Filthy Regs Outreach, I mean, the basis of the program is amazing. And to think that some guys from inside the prison have established something like this to work from the inside out is absolutely astounding. And I think, you know, if we can get enough people on board and get some believers, we can really do a lot to change some of the, you know, injustices that are even being done to the men inside right now. We got they aren't going to help fix what's going on in there, and they've proven that over and over again. And so we got to help ourselves, and I think that Filthy Regs Outreach is an outlet to do that.